Okay, hi and welcome to this very special webinar on You Too Can FinTech. Is FinTech the new gold rush? And I am extremely delighted to have leaders from the industry who are going to be participating with us on this. So I am really glad to welcome Jaimit Doshi and Charandeep Bhattar. Uh, they are from the Aditya Birla Capital Group. Before I start off with the questions and the topic, let me just give a brief introduction about our panelists today. So, Jaimit Doshi is the Chief Digital and Marketing Officer at Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance. He's also worked with Kotak Securities, CoverFox Insurance, and Citrus Payment Solutions in the past. Charandeep Bhattar is the Vice President and Head of Digital Technology Center at Aditya Birla Capital. He oversees the technology across all the various Aditya Birla Capital products and companies. He's also worked in the past with Bharti AXA General Insurance, ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. And for a lot of you who are currently in business schools, he's also an IIM Calcutta alumnus. Okay. You obviously know me. I'm Ankit Doshi. I'm the founder of Inside IIM, the campus app, and Altuni. And we are going to be celebrating the entire concept of fintech over the next few weeks. We actually also have a program called the Certificate Program in FinTech, and the Aditya Birla Capital team has been kind enough to help us, put that together, modularize it, and some of you who are part of that program might also get a chance to interview with the company in case you all do well during the program. So without further ado, let me start with the discussion for today. The first question I have is for Jaimit. Jaimit, you know, technology has always been used in finance. Why is it suddenly that everybody, is looking at fintech and saying that, oh, this is so cool? And why is that suddenly taken everyone's imagination in India, whether it is the front page of a newspaper or stories on apps like FinShots, everywhere, all we see is, one fintech company has raised money or there is some new innovation that people are doing. But from what I understand, technology has always been used in finance. So what do you think is going on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Ankit. You're right. Technology has always been used in finance. So I think it's a question of wave and it's a question of the sexiness behind the entire thing. And sexiness is probably as defined as the monies that are flowing in it. I think what people do believe right now is that the way finance is organized around the world, it is ripe for young people with fresh thinking coming and disrupting it. So that's what makes it exciting, because if people believe that it can be disrupted and the old order can make way for the new order, that's when it gets exciting. So when I was doing my MBA years ago, a lot of the companies that were ICICI, HDFC, Kotaks of the world were the hot ones, and people were looking like these guys are going to disrupt all the old stodgy banks that were coming up. So now what is happening is people look at the fintech saying that there is an old order, there is the new young guys who's going to disrupt the world order, and they're going to come in. And what has changed is fundamentally the level of money that is available for doing such a thing. So earlier it would take what 10, 15, 20 years. But today, if you are able to get the amount of money into a right idea, I think the ability to disrupt is much faster. Now, when the ability to disrupt is much faster, the money is flowing in so much, everybody then chases the money. So it is the great gold rush. Having said that, that's probably an uncharitable way of looking at it. The charitable way of looking at it is there is disruption happening. There is pain in the consumer. There is different needs that he is feeling. There is a demand for the consumer to say, "Bhai, ye to nahi hoga. I want to do it in a different way. It had to be in an easier way." And if there is an easier, better, more rewarding way to do it, and if a Johnny come lately is able to provide it much faster, better, quicker, stronger than established old guard, then it's right. So and that's where the money is going to flow. What has also happened is the good old stodgy, the greatness is the great laws of India. So the laws of India have also made it easier to transact. So there has been the UPI stack and the other stacks that have come in, and There are protection laws, etc., coming in. So it's not easy for somebody to just somehow come up with something new, and it can be dubious. A lot of that has gone out of the window. So any new guy stays within those laws, is able to do a lot of good things, and is able to create disruption. Now, when all of this happens, it looks like a perfect wave and the perfect storm coming. And when this happens, I'm sure there's going to be enough excitement. And old people like us who are in the system are right to be disrupted by young people like you in the audience saying, "Bhai, ye nahi ho sakta, and I have to be a better way." So I would also, in fact, forget everybody else. I am looking at all these guys and like, "Bhai, ye to interesting काम चल रहा है."
Yeah, I guess you will get disrupted unless you disrupt yourself and get better than them.
Absolutely.
So that takes me to Charandeep. Charandeep, you obviously head technology, for Aditya Birla Capital, and I was just looking at some data, and amongst the internet, using audience in India, there is 87 penetration of at least one fintech product. Uh, as recent as 2019, that number was below 45%, and suddenly, I mean, maybe the pandemic has also accelerated this particular move. But from a pure technology perspective, what are the things that you are seeing currently which maybe blow your mind, or which make you feel excited about the future, at this particular point of time?
Yeah, sure. Good question. See, the problem statement in the mind of customers always persisted. It would be wrong to say that people of my, let's say, my father's age, who are now in their late 60s, early 70s, never had expectations or wanted to do, transaction or things with the businesses in the financial space. But because the understanding, the exposure, and the means to doing things were limited at that point in time, it was okay to get away with a suboptimal customer experience. It was okay to have a more physical presence than a digital presence. It was okay to have, maybe something that opens up during a specific time and shuts down. But now what's happened is customers like our audiences, you, me, Jaimit, there has been a pull rather than a push, right? So when we pull something, there is definitely onus on service providers, the product makers, to then think of newer ways of doing things. So to answer specifically your question, I see a lot being done in the way the entire UI UX, the design is being put together. It has become a norm. You do not accept a site which is cluttered, which does not fit on your mobile, which is not responsive, or maybe an app. PWAs have been made popular by all the shopping retail companies. So that becomes a non-starter for the use today. Number two, I think there is a lot of shift in terms of brand loyalty. Today, people are not really attached to a specific brand because it is a brand for those 100 years. People are saying that, look, if you're able to speak to me in the language that I understand, then fantastic, I'm going to transact with you. If there is anything that is falling short, then I'm going to move on. The point I'm making is the need of customization. So UI UX one, customization second. Customization, what I have seen, Ankit, is being driven by data. So how do you take unorganized, unstructured data, then convert it into some sort of information giving, data which then gives us insights into a user? Each and every click stream, if the system can analyze and understand a little bit more about who is transacting or who is visiting the site, that paves the way when you're on your, let's say, the online buying journey. You can understand that and you can make things more contextual, personalized for the user, and user, being a social being, likes that. Third part, which really I think is making things and making big waves, is the entire API ecosystem. So today, no two systems, or should I say previously, no two systems used to talk. Then the entire concept of APIs came together. And now you can build these entire ecosystems where customers maybe, on a given platform, maybe looking at a product from another party. And these are collaborations which you do to bring together maybe a proposition which is great for a customer. Then comes the entire customer journey. How do you take the user from the start to the end? And the technology that goes behind orchestrating that journey. That's my point number 4. And what I'm really seeing is that people are cutting the number of steps it used to take for people to finish a transaction or do any kind of interaction with the system. So given, and broadly, I can continue, there are about 5-6 points more, but in a broader sense, it is the look and feel, the data behind it, the personalization, and the way the product is pulled inside from various places to give a proposition to the end user is what is driving technology today. Back to you, Ankit.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, concur with you on the number of steps getting reduced. I remember my first salary that I got back in 2007. I mean, I had to actually go and deposit the check every single time. And that was, I can't even think of ever visiting a bank branch ever again. And on the topic of banks, there are people like Neeraj Dwivedi and Bhairavi Nagda in the chat as well, and they've actually stolen my question. And this question is for the both of you. Jayamit just mentioned that when he was doing his MBA many years back, some of the new age private banks at that point of time were supposed to be disruptors, and everybody probably wanted to work with them. My question to you all today is, do you think that the traditional banking system is in trouble because all these 24, 25-year-old kids are going to come and snatch away business from them and are going to, do you think it's possible that a lot of people in India will probably have their first bank account on an app? They would have never visited a branch. And that could spell a lot of trouble for some of the incumbents. So what is your view on this, overall at a macro level? Anybody who wants to go first?
Yeah, Janet, you want to?
Yeah, I can. So yeah, it's a controversial one, Ankit. So I think it's a very famous one that the challenger has to get distribution faster than the incumbent can get innovation. That sounded pretty intelligent, but I just read it up somewhere. So yes, there is a problem. Is it somebody's going to steal your cheese immediately? It depends on what you are defining as cheese. So a lot of the young kids will come in and will go through a lot of the challenger brands. They're going to go through a lot of the newer banks. They're going to go through a lot of places where we didn't see competition coming from. That's definitely happening. Now the question is the profit pool going to go away and vanish in an instant? I think most of the theory over there is that the profit pool does not vanish fast and overnight. It vanishes slowly. At some point, there is a tipping point and it just flips over. So I think the classical analogy can be the old cathode ray tubes versus the flat screens. Everybody thought flat screens बहुत expensive है, कौन लेगा? दो चार लेते थे. And then suddenly overnight, nobody wanted to buy a dabba TV. Everybody and his uncle wanted a flat screen. And then it just overnight, your market vanishes. So when is that tipping point? I don't know. It's anybody's guess. But that tipping point is there. But what actually the difference that's happening is there are two forms of innovation coming in. One, where they're just taking the front end and trying to change the core offering of it while keeping the back end and the offering with the classical player. So when you're talking about a neobank is just doing the front end, is trying to, your UI UX changes, the way it looks, where it interacts with you, the way customer service works with you, the credit card, that's changing. But the core is fundamentally with an old existing bank. So that continues to provide APIs and the services. Now that is somewhere playing a license arbitrage. There is a trust arbitrage, whatever that's happening, because maybe RBI does not want to open up too many licenses to various different sets of people. I don't know that. But there is that model running, that somebody is the carrier, somebody is the original provider, and somebody is a wrapper around it and is trying to work through it. I think it's the good old Virgin Mobile model where they didn't own any of the towers, but they just, way they changed and they gave the offers was enough. So that's one way of disruption coming in. In that disruption, both stand to benefit. Who eats the cheese? Fundamentally, again is a question whether the data is getting passed, the data is held here, the data is actually held at both places, both tend to benefit from it. Good question. And it's still the model as we speak. I don't think anybody and his beep really knows where the cheese is shifting. But on the other side, there are a set of innovation players where the entry and exit is not so regulated. There is a lower entry barrier. There is a low regulatory barrier. It's probably a lower amount where a lot of fintechs will come in. And there you're seeing the shift dramatically happen. I have seen it and I lived through in the last 10 years, one thing happening on the broking side. And it moved extremely fast. And before anybody could respond to somebody who wasn't charging brokerage to come and disrupt, like ये क्या करेगा, ये तो सिर्फ इसमें बनाएगा, ये तो सिर्फ इसमें करेगा, and to suddenly move from one side to the other side and make it happen. The cheese, damn it, moved, and it moved very fast after a point. So there was a tipping point. So if for anybody who really is interested, go to Google Trends to see any of the startups that are actually doing very well. You'll see a slow, and then you'll see a tipping point, and then suddenly you'll see the mass of the market has moved. When this happens, anybody's guess. Now, what has happened also is that a lot of incumbents are also getting quite paranoid. So they're also investing a lot on the technology. They're also investing a lot on UI, UX. Of course, there is a lot of legacy that they have to sort. And it's not that easy, as we realize from a lot of the news that we are seeing. And it's not going to be simple, but they're working. Now, the question is, do they get innovation faster than some of the incumbent, some of the challengers get distribution? Is a good bloody question. It's a good bloody. Now, the amount of money that is flowing in is fundamentally buying distribution. Now, they're hoping to buy, they're hoping to click, but there is a trust factor involved. There are these various questions at play, but I don't think any CEO, shareholder of a traditional firm is sleeping at ease over here. He's constantly pushing. He's constantly asking people like Charan and me, ki ab kya karna hai? We probably owe our salaries to this bloody question that says, ki now what is the next thing and how do we keep ourselves relevant? I think it's a challenge that every one of us faces every day because the cost of not getting it right is very huge. What we don't see among the challengers is hundreds of challengers. 5, 6 make it. But because there are hundreds and money is flowing and their ideas are beautiful, I think it's very, very interesting. The shift is definitely going to happen, but in which model? Where does the value lie? I think there are multiple bets on it. And I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. And on YouTube, I think this channel is going to remain for some time. And I don't want to be trolled after after a year or 2 years कि ये देख इसके लिए इसको पैसा मिल रहा है. Charan, your view?
Yeah, very shortly. I think, Jamit, you covered really well. I think disruption is good. Whether people have phobia or they are born out of, native digital, disruption is good. Because it's not you who decide disruption, right? It's your target audience. It's your end users who are demanding. So either you can look at that as an opportunity and pivot. And of course, there will be pain in the offering, as Jamit is saying. But I think there is this entire ecosystem that is now being created in India in particular. And I do follow the Silicon Valley investments, etc., very closely. But I think India now is picking up that pace as well, where maybe angel money is coming in and there is time for people to try new things. But also this culture of failing and then trying again needs to be imbibed a little bit more. I think a lot of banks, etc., have been very risk averse, where you have to get things right the first time, which is exactly contrary to what agile means. And I don't mean that you just keep on failing with agile, but it fundamentally gives you the opportunity to iterate and then pivot. Right. So disruption is good. Will they take over the entire ecosystem of pre-standing institutions? I think time will tell, but as Jamit said, the old institutions are not, they've not thrown in the towel. There is, rigor and work happening, and we'll see how this market then shapes up.
Well, I mean, I think it's clearly established that this is a sector that is ripe for a lot of exciting things to happen. Whether it is the bigger players who are going to fight back, whether it's the newer players who are going to come and replace them. Either way, I think it's an industry that a lot of young folks who are watching this should look at entering. I remember in the late 80s and early 90s, there were a lot of people who entered the financial services space for the first time because India was primarily I mean the depth of financial markets in India was very, very poor, and a lot of people who bet at that particular point of time are today millionaires and billionaires. A similar kind of an inflection took place, I think, when in the early 2000s, when the internet boom came up. Sure, there was a crash in 2001, but I think everybody who followed up and continued to do that, I mean, the entire VC ecosystem and the startup space that we see today, a lot of it was born back then in the early 2000s. And I don't know, I have a feeling that we are probably at a similar kind of a stage with fintech in India as well right now, because a lot of the fintech that we do is not necessarily borrowed from the US or Western countries. I think UPI is a totally Indian thing. Other countries are using it as a case study today. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make for everybody who's watching this is that, guys, please enter this industry. I think you will get rewarded handsomely, in the future. Whatever you take up, whether it is risk, finance, marketing, technology, but try and look at this sector deeply. And I mean, for that,
Ankit, it's a little controversial question, controversial statement. Sorry to cut in, but you know what? I'll tell you what. In 96, 98, I was doing my MBA. 96 batch, I think I'm a 98 batch. 96 batch was 75% finance. There was the NBFC boom, and whatever you're talking right now, people used to talk about NBFCs, and they used to be like the thing. And NBFC bust happened. And 98, the entire batch became 75-80% marketing. There were 5 finance students left. So, bolte ja.
Yeah, but I think so. I mean, I think I don't think that it's going to be a linear one-way go up. But definitely, people who were in finance and who probably weathered the Asian crisis in the 97, 98 time. Eventually, they made it big during the 2002 to 2007 boom in India, when finance just absolutely, like, I remember people, I mean, I was still in college then, but I remember people doubling their salaries every year. And, so, I mean, you never know what can happen. Of course, it's going to have its own ups and downs. But I mean, the point I was trying to make, guys, is that we have a certificate program in FinTech, and please have a look at it. You would have seen links shared by our team in the chat box as well. And you can just visit altuni.in, altuni by Inside IM, and have a look at the program. So anyway, moving on, the other question I had, Charandeep, for you was, given that you have a lot of insurance background as well, somebody's asked, what are the fintech plays that are taking place in the overall domain of insurance? Because it's such a boring kind of a industry. If you think about it traditionally, a agent aata hai ghar pe, bolta hai ab ye policy kharid lo. If I look at the entire general insurance space, people don't even have general insurance for so many things. Like, we don't have house insurance. Very few people take fire insurance. Abhi, because when you want to travel abroad, you need a compulsory travel insurance, so people are forced to take that. Otherwise, if they had their choice, they wouldn't even take that. But that space also seems to, I mean, we are seeing a lot of, if you think about it, there are 2 IPOs coming up. One is a new age startup that is coming up with an IPO that actually is an aggregator of insurance policies. And on the other hand, you have the behemoth, LIC, the largest, the most trusted insurance player in the country. It's also looking to, come and list on the markets. So a lot of things seem to be happening there as well. And, given your background, I thought, how is insurance and fintech coming together? And if you have any views on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think insurance, let's divide it. Let's divide it into general insurance and life insurance. Let me pick up general insurance first. I don't think the model is very boring. I mean, if you look at players like Lemonade, which is doing something different. I'm not sure if people have followed Lemonade or they have, but they do a peer-to-peer. They create a pool of claim amount which goes into a common pool, and then basis that the whole thing is paid out. Now, this kind of thing India has not seen. Regulatory, etc., needs to evolve further. But again, I think there is opportunity in terms of doing much more things. The IRDA is working with the insurance companies in coming up with newer models, like the entire 1-year policy that came out for motor. Now they've done 3-year motor, OD and TP and all those kind of things. So I don't think the market or the industry is still at where it is. Speaking of travel insurance is like, is the steroids of insurance, because it's got a shorter duration term. So if you're an insurance company, you would want to sell more of insurance, obviously looking at the loss ratios, etc., intact. But even in, let's say, travel insurance, the need was there to create a product where, without much intervention of, let's say, the customer, if your flight is delayed, automatically the amount gets credited in your account, no questions asked. So again, going back to my point, if there is a need, if your customer is asking for it, business will have to look for those things and pivot. Now, on the life insurance side, we've been always talking about, these long-term policies. I have those long-term policies. In fact, my parents took those policies for me. I'm paying premium for those. Those are full life policies. But again, this entire thing of term policy, or what we call as sachet policies, have come in, where you can pay really minimal amount, yet get a term cover for a fixed duration. So that, again, no one had really thought of, but this is becoming really, really hot, and is innovating and is taking, while it will take some time for, people to shift from the annuity kind of products, but these are the things which people are demanding. Mobile insurance, again, no one had really thought of. Pet insurance is now becoming popular in India. So these things are opening up. As and when more education, more push has been given, then more and more things are opening up. Back to you.
I have just read a comment in the comment section. Jay wants Jayamit to be a professor because he loved the explanation that you gave with an example. All I can say, Jay, is that if you want to meet Jayamit, you can sign up for the program. He's actually going to be doing a session with us. So he is actually going to become a professor.
Keith, I am actually a part-time professor, interestingly enough.
Okay. So where do you go to teach, Jayamit?
I teach at a few BMS schools and some guest faculty somewhere. Few places.
Okay, yeah. Lovely. Okay. The next question I have is actually connected to a lot of questions I'm seeing in the chat as well, which is connected to careers. So one of the things that people are asking is, how do finance jobs change now with fintech? Because a lot of the work that middlemen, broker type work that was there in the financial industry is probably not required in a way, right? Like, for example, machines can do a lot of work that was probably done by analysts earlier, or in terms of selling. So, I mean, we don't need agents for every single financial product anymore. People can just look it up on online on an app, and they get, the distribution that Jayamit was talking about of various financial services products is now available via various popular apps with extremely good UI, which makes it very intuitive. It's almost like, there is a dopamine hit that you get when you go and purchase a policy. There is a nice sound that comes in. Or if you put a trade in Zerodha, every time the trade gets executed, you get like a nice dopamine hit again, right? So in terms of the people who are working in this industry, it is obviously a relevant question that, what happens to the finance jobs? And what is your view on that in terms of, do people need different set of skills now? Yeah. So, over to you guys.
Yeah, interesting question, Ankit. It is changing, but jobs have always been changing. So it's not like it pehli baar ho raha hai. Only thing, if you take it over a span of 100 years, repetitive work, etc., the ability to intermediate, etc., is now changing the way we look at it. So first, number one, I just wanted to hold some of the thoughts that I've been seeing on disintermediation. It looks like ऐसा होएगा, but you know what? Genuinely, हो तो नहीं रहा है इतना pace पे. We look at you go online and buy an insurance policy. You are going to be accosted by a telecaller, and you are going to be explained the product. Today, some part of term can be sold online. What part of non-term gets sold online? Very, very difficult. So there is a job of somebody sitting with you. There is a job of somebody holding your hands. There is a job of somebody explaining stuff to you. Now, I do appreciate the broker you were talking about does not give research, but there are tons of players online on YouTube giving research. Now, the role is changing. The way they are getting compensated is changing. The way they interact with you is changing. I will be extremely surprised when we will have a population that is completely financial literate, is doing things on their own and does not require anybody, and the UX is so amazing and tack मैं कर दूंगा. नहीं होता है. A lot of it, what given all the growth, what is the penetration of broking in the country? Given all the growth, what is the penetration of mutual funds in the country? SIPs सही है, mutual funds सही है, क्या है penetration? And what is the penetration of direct, where you are actually saving money and you can go, versus the lot of the players who have somebody advising. So the role fundamentally is slightly different that you look at it. It's very cool to say, ये सब बकवास है, सब उड़ने वाला है, सब मरने वाला है. I appreciate that. It's good thinking. But if you just sit back, the bigger opportunity, the great opportunity seems to be that we can improve productivity as opposed to getting rid of. If there is a broker, if there is an agent, if there is somebody, the way we look at it, the way we internally have made it, we are calling it the Iron Man, saying that you are normal set of people. Can we bloody put an arc reactor in you? Can we ensure that all the tools that are available, do you have a Jarvis along with you? Do you have special skills that can work with it? Can you have things that technology that you can normally work and carry, and suddenly you press a button and you're ready? Can that happen? If you do that, the model is totally what we look at it, call it the Iron Man model. You look at an average Joe and his ability to do work enhances dramatically because you put a technology structure around it. Now, when you look at this, the kind of roles that you're looking at are very interesting and very different. Now, earlier, the hottest thing was the project manager. Right now, it is the product manager. The guy who thinks differently, the guy who thinks the end of the consumer. What is he doing? How does he do it? Some guy who looks at the process and says, I can put RPS, robotic process automation, at these various places. Somebody looks at it and comes back and says, can I reimagine the journey this way? Some product guy comes and thinks it, earlier I was thinking of a product that can be sold in this way. Now let me just think through. If it has to be minimal intervention buying, what do I do? How do I create it? How do I create a product and simplify it as opposed to trying to reducing choice kind of problems come into play? The role will consistently change. All I expect young kids to look at and say, भाई इसको मैं उड़ा दूंगा. Think again. ये है कोई रीजन के लिए, ये समझ रहा है इंश्योरेंस में maximum policies. Now in my erstwhile company, one of the big things we thought is people will come and buy insurance on their own. Today the bloody company is damn good and it's innovating on what? Giving insurance to agents which are on the ground, giving choice of insurance companies to the agents which are on the ground. So fundamentally it took tech. It made life faster, better, easier, stronger, but did not disintermediate. It just changed the scale of intermediation. 1:1 versus 1:100 versus the productivity that a telecaller brings in versus the productivity. The whole game changes, and the kind of people that are required are always reimaginists in some ways. Whether you're a marketing guy, whether you're a sales guy, whether you are a product guy, whether you're a tech guy, are you ready to look at it and say कि ये ना हुई, reimagine करो, इसको वापस देखो. अगर ये skill set है आपका, like the other day I was speaking to someone, you're saying that data storytellers are more important. You have data engineers and data modelers, but ये सब बना के data storyteller कौन है? Same way. So today the skill sets, and I hate to say it, are probably not there in colleges, but they're there in reading books, reading literature, reading fiction, reading somewhere else to look at it and say, भाई ये interesting क्या है? Suddenly, Snowpiercer after Metaverse comes in becomes the hottest book ever. And it's a fiction book. How did it come through? It just thinks through differently. Fiction has a beautiful pop fiction, other fictions have a beautiful different way to look at it. Now, these are different skill sets. They're not of taught, but they're off learned. There is a dichotomy there. And if you're able to look around and look at it, take inspiration from various different places and say, I can pick it up and I can do it. Doesn't matter what you do, you'll probably find yourself an exciting career within any fin firm. Tech भूल जाते हैं, fin देखते हैं.
Awesome. I just want to say that, taking cue from this particular thing that you said, that, a lot of these skills are probably not currently there in colleges. At least what we've done with the program that we are introducing is that we are getting industry practitioners like you from across different companies that are, selling different kinds of products to come and talk to students and, actually teach them, so that they know what's actually happening on the ground rather than what is probably taught in some textbook, which is probably written 20 years old, 20 years back by somebody, and abridged versions with some sections added and spellings changed, is given to students. So hopefully anybody who's watching this might appreciate that. I Never Lie in the chat has asked Charandeep, what is the insurance policy he should take in his 20s. Sorry, I never lie. This is not a personal finance webinar. So
Ankit, I also have a sales target. Allow me.
Yeah, but there is a question, that we can potentially give to you, Charan, from Pranav Purohit. He's asking, what do you think of the buy now, pay later based fintech startups, the BNPL rage that is currently on? There's an Australian company that has gotten unicorn status recently because of this BNPL. In India, we have multiple examples of this. Do you think that it's sustainable? Do you think it's going to blow up? Or do you think that data is going to ensure that we never come to that? What is your view on the BNPL phenomenon?
Yeah. So I think this is a model which is looking like it is going to be something very exciting. We are also looking at it in many ways, but I think it's again early days to kind of see where it goes. It fundamentally depends on what kind of use cases come through, and whether those use cases can then be repeated at a larger scale. Because for anything to materialize and for you to get economies of scale, you need to have large number of people doing that again and again. And I think that's where my view is at this point in time. It has good potential, it has great potential in what it's doing. Applicability also looks good, but I think a little early for me to declare that yes, this is something that is going to be here and is going to take over the world, in my view.
Okay. There is one more question from Devdatta Saha, which is connected to technology. So his question is, how important are technical hard skills like Python and data visualization processes if you want to work in the finance domain? So what do you have to say to Devdatta?
So even the previous question, Ankit, I wanted to come in. I think the shift has happened in a way that each and every one should have appreciation of technology, if not writing code. I think writing code itself is a fantastic thing. But if you're not writing code, at least you understand the way, let's say, a website or an app functions. What are the various components? What is the client side? What is the server side? What are the things that a CDN does? What is a web server? The interaction between the two. Where does an API come? How does an orchestration layer works? It really gives you a huge perspective of understanding how a customer is thinking. Because at the end of the day, if there is a delay for 4 seconds, 5 seconds on your website, the customer is going to shut it down and move on. And if you don't understand that pain point, you've lost maybe a potential customer right then and there. And then it is races for courses. I think if Django, Python, or those kind of skill sets is something that attracts you, then please, yes, by all means, you should go there. I think that's a really, really hot skill set at this point in time. Even R, which is a program language for data visualization, data So you can.
I think you muted yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just got a call. So that's something you can look at. But my view is try to broaden your horizon. Try to look at the entire stack. Try to be a full stack developer, because then you can have much more appreciation of where the information is flowing in from the front end. How is it being looked at into a database, or where the data is being massaged, or if there's an API call, how is that call happening, and how is it being handled on the server side, whether it's on cloud, what is the configuration of cloud. These are really, really hot skills today that I think if people are not champions, but should have great affinity and understanding of these things.
Okay. One very interesting question we have from I Never Lie Again. If Jamit sir, if you were a student again, what would you do differently in your career, and how would you pursue your career differently? He's saying, please ask this question to Charamdi sir as well. It's an advice for students that they are looking for. So,
Sure.
Guys, what would you do differently?
Charan, you go first.
Okay. So I think the entire education system when I was growing up, when I was doing my education, was very bookish. It meant that you mug up something, you learn something, and then you give an exam. And if you get a good score, that's the certificate that you got for your entire life, that this is what intelligence you carry. That thing of constantly learning, constantly being in a practical mode, picking up newer skills, trying those newer skills, failing at those newer skills, is something that my generation, and I'm in my mid-40s, my generation, I would say, was not doing. And if given an opportunity, I would want to try, fail, pick up, really, really serious things in terms of AI, ML, all these things which are now becoming much more prominent, and maybe fail 10 times, try, learn, redo it, and then come out of it with huge learnings or a skill set which then I can implement and use going forward. Jamit, over to you.
Yeah, definitely not do a MBA. And definitely, oh man, definitely not spend enough time in the classroom. Definitely go out, read a lot of books, see a lot of movies, go on YouTube, get on Reddit, start investing very early so that by 46, I don't have to sit and answer questions like this. No, but I think very, very importantly is, I don't think, see, that the textbook is being written as we speak. So if you look at a textbook and say, कि मेरे को टेक्स्ट बुक से सीखना है, then there is a problem. If you look at a professor and say, मेरे को प्रोफेसर से सीखना है, then there is a problem. But if you try and understand thought processes, if you try and understand patterns of disruption, if you try and look at it and say, okay, I need to disrupt this, I need to change this. When you look at your banking app and say, what is wrong with it? Suppose you just sit and wireframe some of the work that you see and the ideas that you have. I think that learning is far more than anything. I would urge all of you guys to go out, think of ideas, try your, this is the best time for you guys to be entrepreneurs. Try and be an entrepreneur, work on different forums. So even if you're here listening to us, or you go get into the FinTech program or anything, you're not going there to learn so many different things or concepts, because if you're going there to learn a concept or something like that, you're probably barking at the wrong tree. If you're going there to understand which is a new skill set that I don't have and that I need to acquire, then you're probably in the right place. Now, if you look at, that's what I constantly try and do. Look at new things, read new books, read books that I don't like reading, read articles about people that are doing interesting, read biographies. Those kind of stuff actually is good. And read fiction also. Marvel is also a phenomenal, as you would have figured. But as long as you're able to go outside, relate to what is interesting and look at the existing thing and say, bhai, ye nahi chalta hai, then you've got yourself a bloody good education. Till then, you probably just got yourself a degree, and I wouldn't bother. So while Ankit is talking about a certificate course, I'd be more worried about the course and not the bloody certificate. That doesn't count. But if you're getting into the course and you're able to say कि इसकी वजह से मेरा thought process बदल रहा है, YouTube पे भर के articles, उससे मेरा thought process बदल रहा है, I am able to think in a different way. And I'm listening to amazing people, and they are helping and talking about their skills and how they changed. Then you're good. I probably would have burnt all my textbooks.
Yeah, I mean that's a great segue for me to just take a minute break for a minute and just tell our audience what is it that we are actually going to be doing. So ignore the certificate, as Jamit said. Just look at the program. You are going to be learning it from industry people. So this is just a very brief go through into our brochure. What are the areas that we are looking to cover. And obviously there is 45 hours of live learning. We're also looking to help you learn concepts in blockchain, cryptocurrencies, which may not be legal yet in India fully, but you still get to understand the thought process, as Jamit was just saying, from people who are currently doing it. Apart from that, you also get a lot of personal attention, resume building, career services, career coaching, etc. This is a broad schedule that we have. So, we have introduction to the entire fintech world, the consumer payments and lending system, understanding emerging technologies like AI, ML, also looking at things like risk, because, we haven't spoken about risk analytics at all yet in the webinar, but, no financial services player can exist without having a great risk team. And yeah, apart from that, there is a live project which you will get to work on, which you can obviously also put on your resume when you're looking to apply for jobs. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. So you'll find a lot more detail, on the website, and you can have a look at that. And also, there will be sessions by Charandeep and Jamit as well for all of you who really fascinated by them already. Okay, we have about 15 minutes to go. So I just wanted to, take a bit of a break from fintech, and there are some basic career-related questions. So Shubham is asking, can you suggest some useful books which we can, read to help shape our future? So maybe each one of you can maybe give one or two books each. Charandeep, any favorite book that you would recommend anybody who's starting a career right now to read?
Yeah,
and same for you, Jamit.
It depends on what kind of area that you're going in. I fundamentally don't read much of fiction. That I've read a lot in my bachelor's and master's time. I fundamentally try to read more product kind of books. So there's a book from Neer Ayal called Hooked, which
that's good.
Which caught my attention. I've read it. I've read it. I've circulated it to a lot of people as well. Plus, also there is a book on storytelling. It's a storytelling kind of book based on DevOps. It gives you a story about a guy in a company, how digital transformation is going wrong for him, and the CEO walks in, and gives him a certain amount of time and budget to turn it around. So it's a real life situation. So if you're interested in those kind of things, DevOps, relating real life situations to technology, then those kind of books is something that I can, really inspire you to look at. And this will change your perspective. You will then get real life understanding of what happens when you go inside a workforce, what kind of pressures are there, what kind of situations are there. And then it prepares you. You can start thinking on those directions. It'll really help you that way.
It sounds like, the Goal, book like The Goal, which also had like a real life operations problem, and it was created into a story. Interesting. Jamit, over to you.
Yeah, if you ask for one book, you probably miss the point. You have to read a lot. You have to constantly read. I think these days, yes, books are very, very interesting, and you look at different books. Like, who would have imagined? I was just looking Snow Crash. So if everybody's talking about metaverse, it was first mentioned in 1992. Wow, like that's where the concept of metaverse first made its this thing. And right now, today, it suddenly becomes so exciting with Zach talking about it. So it's a very interesting thing. You have to keep reading. You have to keep reading what is interesting, what's going on. Like 20 years ago, I remember reading The Search, and I thought Google was extremely interesting by John Bettel. And that opened my minds to some of it. Today, when I look at it, what did I last read? I read Amazon Unbound. Then I read Always Day One. They're again interesting books. But if you read one book, two books, no, buddy. You'll have to read a lot more. You'll have to get a lot tougher. And honestly, you read a book, that's fine. But there is so much wealth, so many newsletters everybody's coming up with. Subscribe to bloody 100 newsletters. Look at your inbox and say, let me skim through a lot of newsletters every day. People are giving on Substack dunya ka wisdom, their entire wisdom, their life's wisdom. They're giving it to you for $1 or $2. Subscribe, go online, find out. And that's more than enough. And as long as you keep reading it, you'll realize there is a world of possibilities. And then you double click on something that's more interesting. Then you double click on something more interesting. If you don't have 20 tabs open on your browser window right now, you're probably making an error. कुछ तो तुम गड़बड़ कर रहे हो. खोलो 20 tabs. देखो क्या कर रहे हो, कहाँ से क्या पढ़ रहे हो. तो ही तो then you will realize कि the world is vast and you, me, all of us know practically little.
That was awesome, Jaymit and Charandeep. There is a question for Charandeep. I don't know the name of the person, but Charandeep, do you see a sort of a super app scenario in FinTech where payments, insurance, investment, everything is part of one app? Probably, I guess, on the lines of, say, WeChat in China. Will we have a super app in India that will do everything? What is your view on it from a technology standpoint? Do you think it will get too cluttered and people won't be able to use it? What are your views on that?
No, I think that's a very interesting space at this point in time. And funny enough, I've had the privilege of working with Tencent also. So those kind of models again are picking up pace. I'm sure people would be following what Tata is doing. Tata has acquired a lot of companies across categories, and now they're trying to bring everything together into one solution. So I think the next evolution will have to come in the way of partnership ecosystems and resulting into some sort of super app, which again has. So when we say super app, it needs to have really well-defined, crisp user journeys. It needs to have one-click transactions. It needs to have information that the user can easily digest and understand, and it cuts across the entire gamut. So I mean. Short answer, yes. I think that is something which is on the horizon. It will pick up quite soon. Whether it will be a success or not remains to be seen. That's where the crux of technology would come in as to how we can then package that entire technology. Because you need to think of what kind of components needs to go in there. You may think of an LMS, you may think of a BPM tool. You have to think of a CRM. How all of that needs to function together to give that end user that expectation or the experience that they are looking for is so companies, businesses which will be able to achieve that, I think will be able to see a huge success. Companies which will try and fall short of it will then, will have to pivot and do something else. But yes, it's an interesting space which will definitely see more action.
Can I take a diagrammatically
sure.
opposite view on this one, Karan?
Sure, please.
So, sorry, Ankit, I'll just have my 2 bits on this one, because I am of those, and this is one thing let me probably say on YouTube that somebody can troll me after 2-3 years. I do believe, or 10 years maybe, I do believe that super app is extremely difficult play in India. Around the world, you're seeing it only happen in controlled economy like a China. If you look at where innovation is completely uncontrolled, unbridled, etc., you can't see the emergence of the super app, because each one in its own complete niche is doing so amazingly well that it becomes difficult for a super app to flow through. Now, when you look east, you have the bats which are trying to control the ecosystem, and the government's probably like a set of certain people managing everything. You can't really be a success unless you've taken equity money from some of these big guys. It doesn't work like that in India. India model is far more open. You are allowed free flow of entry, exits are there. You are allowed to take money from multiple sources, etc. You can choose not to be a part of an ecosystem and create your own and still be popular. In such scenarios, do you think a super app kind of a system would work versus a horses for courses best in class would work? So when you look at the West, where innovation is completely open, it works where the super app just doesn't work, where each of the best in class solutions work. But when you look at India and you try and understand what is India, and you think, is it more east or is it more west in its democratic kind of a setup? Then you may want to suitably alter the question. The chimera or the hunt for the super app is a favorite of most CEOs, but it's not that easy. You need some crazy amount of capital. You need some crazy amount of crushing of competition. You need some crazy amount of barriers for it to work. I am not going to put my neck out and say we will expect to see it. You may have a conglomeration of apps at best, but one super that solves everything, थोड़ा सा मेरे को देखना है. I'm betting my every last hair on my head on that one.
I mean, as a CEO for the last 8 years working on a startup, I kind of tend to be in Jamit's camp because every time we've tried to the use cases are so different for different things, and the moment you try to optimize for one, you end up pissing off somebody else. So it absolutely, at least intuitively, makes sense what you're saying, that it probably looks difficult, but I mean, it only takes one person to do it before we all change our opinion.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I mean, I agree with Jamit, but again, we are talking about disruptions. We're talking about how markets are evolving, etc. No one really thought that you would book a taxi on your app and then watch it come to your doorstep and then sit inside, then pay through the phone. Same goes for your Zomatos and your Swiggies. It is an opportunity which, again, as I said, time will tell. A lot of technology needs to be crunched into this entire thing. And as Jamit said, needs to be a significant amount of cash being burned in terms of getting the use case out. But we'll see. Again, I'm saying it is too early days to get into this. But before that, I think there is a lot of ecosystem play that can be done. Taking from what Jamit and you are saying, Ankit, that there is a product that is already selling and there is an affinity product that someone else has. Can you bring that together into a common platform for the consumers? And that's an acquisition strategy that you can build. And if it's a direct channel, then you can build, scale much quicker with limited amount of marketing money being thrown around. So that's my 2 bits on that.
No, I mean, absolutely. That is also a scenario that could play out. Last couple of questions before we close. Jamit, you said sometime back you wouldn't have done an MBA if you had an option. So I have a few people, who are CAs, CFAs, and commerce background students like Vinay Kumar Jha, and there are actually a couple of others who asked this question: Sir, can we join the FinTech industry? Do we have a future? Because Charandeep said, you need to have technology affinity. So do CFAs, chartered accountants, and commerce grads have any space in the new emerging FinTech space? Jamit, Charandeep, whoever.
If you're going to stick to what you are taught in commerce, debit what comes and credit what goes up, तो थोड़ा सा FinTech में problem है. तुम फिन में जा सकते हो, FinTech में थोड़ा सा problem है. But if you're ready to say जो मैं सीखा वो सिर्फ डिग्री और छापा है, और जो what I really want to do is I want to innovate, I want to think, and I want to use my brains. Bloody hell, man! Everybody, it's open for everyone. There is nobody who dare say कि ये तेरी बस की बात नहीं है. Don't ever listen to anyone who says that. It works for everyone. I'm a commerce grad, but I work with Charan and I understand a lot of the tech that is going. I can't code, but I understand what Charan was saying earlier. What tech can do for you is more important. If you're able to get that, it's able to work. Are you able to reimagine the journeys? Are you able to reimagine how the consumer is going to interact with you? Then it will work. And if you think तेरे में वो है कि मैं constantly बोलूं कि I can keep thinking, I can keep looking at it, I can keep innovating. Sometimes having a commerce graduation or something like that would really help. In the way you look at a balance sheet also really help. The way you look at it in the way the accounts, the biggest pain in broking. When you look at a broking account, it is hell you can't make out कि कितना पैसा गया, कितना पैसा आया, कितना shares है, कब पैसा मिलने वाला है, T+2 क्या है. If a simple accounts guy look at it or a CFA looks at it and says, this doesn't make sense, let me make sense of it the way consumer looks at it. You bring your CA and your commerce degrees into the play and the knowledge, and you look at the consumer and you mesh it together.
Yeah.
You are a bloody unicorn, man, Mr. Jha.
Yeah. I echo that thought. You, as I said, you need to have technology affinity, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. It fundamentally means that, FinTech is two words, finance and technology. So अगर आपको finance अच्छा आता है, तो then, that's half the battle won. And as Jemit is saying, that's perfect example, because today I see in my team or in our teams across the organization that how do we simplify some of the things that our customers are seeing, whether it's a statement, whether it's the kind of folios they are buying. There is always a need for someone to humanize data, humanize it in a way that it can be consumed. See, we talk about all this thing. There is also a person out there who doesn't understand your company's lingo. I may say to Jemit that, hey, let's do a sip ke baad kuch karenge, tip karenge. That may be a lingo that he and I understands, but a customer outside does not know. So if you have that understanding and you can say, boss, ye band karo jargon, this analogies and all does not work. Let's simplify it, humanize it, give it a human touch. Then I think you're a rock star in what you are doing. So don't ever think that there is no space for you. As long as you can, in your space, reimagine how that process or how that service can sell. Technology is an enabler. Technology will enable it, right? Earlier, everything used to be on a pamphlet or a brochure. Now that brochure has become a digitized version of it. Now it's become augmented reality. You look through your mobile phone, it starts to dance and all that. So technology is an enabler. It will keep on giving you newer ways to express yourself. But someone needs to reimagine that. That's what Jamit's been saying throughout this discussion. You need to reimagine that. So you have a golden opportunity there.
Okay, I know we are just above 7, but since I had promised, I'll take that one last question. So Muskan and Kavya has asked this question like 5 times, I think, on the chat already. I don't know what you mean by RegTech, Kavya, and if you guys know what RegTech is, I'm guessing it's regulatory tech. I don't know what she means by that, but she's saying is RegTech a career that one should take? And Muskan is asking whether law students are required in FinTech. I'm sure they are required. I mean, I can't think of any company that can run without legal and regulatory frameworks. But I mean, given the fine line that one has to, walk with, regulators like RBI, SEBI, IRDA, how do you look at, getting people from these backgrounds, guys?
I can go on this one. So just to quote Steve Jobs, he said, first be a pirate, then be the Navy. Now अभी pirate है तो तेरे को regulation, law ये सब तो समझना पड़ेगा ही. It's something that is extremely critical. If you cannot see, Fin is regulated. Now, if you don't understand regulation, you cannot even get off the ground. Now, within the ambit and the paradigms of regulation, the question is constantly asking what is allowed, what is allowed, what is allowed. Now, earlier, many days, I remember many years ago, KYC used to be in-person verification. यानी कि आपको सामने मिलके करना है. Somebody went and pushed the bar. Dude, I am seeing him, but I'm just seeing him on video conference. Is that allowed or not allowed? The pirate said it's allowed. The Navy said no. The pirate became the Navy at some point of time and he became really big. Then somebody came and said, one second. Some of the stuff that Charan is working on. Liveliness check. Now मैं फोटो ले रहा हूं और मैं liveliness check ले रहा हूं तो मेरे को समझ में आ रहा है कि ये dead है या alive है और इसको मैं underwrite कर सकता हूं. Now again, somebody understands what the scope of the law is and is able to push. Now anybody, if you have to work in FinTech, you have to have a bloody good understanding of the law. Now whether you take law as a central field and then work around it, or you do something around product and you say my law skills or my other skills are added to it to argue with somebody and the compliance guy to make things happen. And that's a call whether you take choice A or choice B. But I don't know why, Ankit, why people are asking these questions. Everybody, it's a party. Everybody come. Please come. And anybody with a wilder idea is welcome to this wild party. Don't let anybody tell you it's not possible. Come, we take all key, caste, creed, size. We are completely open to any education, lack of thereof. And if anybody says तुम्हारा education बराबर नहीं है, तुमको hire नहीं कर सकते, go and start a startup and disrupt that guy.
And to that point, Jemit, I also want to add, I think it'll be good for people to know this. So I don't originally come from the financial technology background. I used to make mobile games. Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I've done 2 startups. One of them was mobile games. So we used to make mobile games, and that's the time when Facebook and Zynga and all those things started. And we started making games for Facebook and mobile, etc. And over time, obviously, gaming business in India didn't pick up as it was slightly ahead of its time. But then I pivoted and I came into this. So there is no real. So I would want to quote Mr. Henry Ford. If you think you're going to succeed, you're right. If you don't think you're going to succeed, you're right. It is a mindset. So if I can do it, you can also do it. There's no real barrier there.
Awesome, guys. This was fantastic. I had a lot of fun talking to you, both of y'all. And, the chat and the kind of activity we've seen on the chat also, suggests the same. And I really hope that, you found this particular 1 hour useful, guys, whoever was watching it. Somebody's asking about whether there is a scholarship for this program. Pranav, there is a scholarship for this program, but I think the last date might have passed. You might have to want to check with the team. But thank you so much, Charandeep, Jemit, for the time that you put in. And I'm sure that people are going to benefit immensely. This video is going to be on the channel forever. And every time they're going to listen to your predictions and your views of the world, they're going to sit and wait to troll you a few years later when things get disrupted. So I look forward to all of that.
I hope I change my opinion on a lot of things.
Thank you, Charan. Thank you, Jemit.
Thank you so much, Fredden. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.